Trump extended the ceasefire with Iran yesterday. This morning, Iran seized 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Here's what just happened. Early this morning, Iran's Revolutionary Guard attacked 3 container ships trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. The first ship, the Euphoria, was approached by an IRGC gunboat. The Guard opened fire, causing heavy damage to the bridge. All crew were reported safe, but the ship was severely damaged. Then Iran seized 2 more ships, the MSC Francesca and the Epaminondas, both container ships attempting to transit the strait. Iran's navy stopped them, boarded them, and directed them to Iranian waters. The crews are safe. The ships are now in Iranian custody. This happened hours after Trump announced he was extending the ceasefire with Iran indefinitely. Yesterday, Trump said the ceasefire would continue with no end date. He said he was giving Iran time to come up with a unified proposal. He said the blockade would remain in place, but the ceasefire was extended. Iran's response came this morning: seized 3 ships, fire on 1, detain 2, in the exact waterway both countries are fighting over. On Sunday, the U.S. Navy seized an Iranian cargo ship called the Tuska. The ship was trying to leave Iranian waters despite the U.S. blockade. The U.S. warned it for hours. The ship refused to stop, so the U.S. fired on the engine room, disabled the ship, and Marines boarded it. The U.S. discovered it was carrying chemicals from China that can be used to manufacture ballistic missiles. Iran called that piracy. Iran said it was a ceasefire violation. Iran threatened to retaliate. And this morning, Iran did exactly that. 3 ships, same waterway, same justification. But here's what makes this complicated. The White House says Iran seizing these ships isn't a ceasefire violation. When asked if Iran's actions break the ceasefire, the press secretary said no. Why? Because these weren't U.S. ships, these weren't Israeli ships, these were international vessels. Let that sink in. The U.S. seized an Iranian ship and said it was enforcing a blockade. Iran seized 3 international ships and said the same thing. Both sides claim they're justified. And the White House is saying Iran's seizures don't count as violations because the ships weren't American. If Iran can seize international shipping without breaking the ceasefire, what's stopping them from seizing more? The answer is nothing. Because there's no deadline, no pressure, no consequence. Trump extended the ceasefire indefinitely. No end date, no timeline. Just wait until Iran submits a proposal. But Iran isn't submitting anything. Iran's foreign ministry said there's no decision yet on whether to even attend talks. Iran's parliament speaker said they won't reopen the Strait of Hormuz as long as the U.S. blockade remains. So now we have dueling blockades. The U.S. is blockading Iranian ports to prevent ships from leaving. Iran is blockading the Strait of Hormuz to prevent ships from entering. The U.S. seizes Iranian ships. Iran seizes international ships. Both say it's enforcement. Both claim the other is violating the ceasefire. The strait is effectively closed. Only 7 ships passed through in the 12 hours before this morning's seizures. Normally, over 100 ships transit the strait every day. 20% of the world's oil typically flows through that waterway. 20% of global liquefied natural gas. Right now, it's barely functioning. Multiple ships are turning off their transponders to avoid detection. The MSC Francesca was in the Persian Gulf since April 18th. It turned off its tracking signal. It reappeared this morning off Iran's coast, seized. The Epaminondas did the same thing. Signal went dark, reappeared in Iranian waters, also seized. Ships are trying to sneak through. Some get caught. Some get fired on. The global economy is watching this critical shipping lane collapse in real time. Oil prices spiked, stock futures fell, markets are reacting to every development. The talks that were supposed to happen in Pakistan, not happening. Vice President Vance was supposed to travel there for negotiations. That trip got suspended. Iran hasn't confirmed they're sending anyone. Pakistan deployed 20,000 security personnel preparing for talks that may never occur. The first round on April 11th ended with no agreement. This second round isn't even starting. Trump said Iran's government is seriously fractured, that they can't come up with a unified position, that he's waiting for them to get organized. But while he's waiting, Iran is taking coordinated action, seizing ships, firing on vessels, asserting control. They don't look fractured. There's a pattern here. Monday night, Hours before the original ceasefire deadline, Iran paraded a ballistic missile through Tehran. The Khorramshahr-4, 2,000-kilometer range, the same type Iran has fired at Israel during this war. They rolled it through Revolution Square in front of thousands of cheering Iranians. That was Monday night. Tuesday, Trump extended the ceasefire with no end date. Wednesday morning, Iran seized 3 ships. Every time Trump makes a diplomatic move, Iran responds with a show of force. Trump said Iran is collapsing financially, that they're losing $500 million a day, that their military isn't getting paid. But seizing 3 ships this morning doesn't look like desperation. It looks like calculated retaliation from a country that knows the U.S. has limited options. Because what can the U.S. do? Resume military operations? That's exactly what the ceasefire extension was supposed to avoid. Seize more Iranian ships? Iran will seize more international vessels, tighten the blockade. Iran will tighten control of the strait. Every escalation triggers counter-escalation. And Trump just removed his leverage by removing the deadline. The original ceasefire was 2 weeks. Started April 8th, supposed to expire yesterday. That deadline created pressure. Iran had to decide, negotiate or face resumed bombing. Now there's no deadline. Iran can stall indefinitely. They can keep the strait closed. They can use this time to rebuild and resupply. And there's no timeline forcing them to decide. Trump said there's no time frame for this conflict. The White House is satisfied with the economic pressure and will wait for Iran's proposal. But every day the strait stays closed causes economic damage. Not just to Iran, to the entire global economy. Gas prices are over $4 a gallon. Oil is near $95 a barrel. The longer this continues, the more everyone feels the pain. And Iran knows this. The longer the strait stays closed, the more pressure builds on Trump. Midterm elections are 6 months away. Trump's approval on the war is 33%. 53% of Americans oppose the war. The political pressure is building. Iran just has to wait. The ceasefire was supposed to create space for negotiations. Instead, it created space for both sides to keep escalating without resuming open warfare. The U.S. seizes ships and calls it enforcement. Iran does the same. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, despite a separate ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah that started April 16th, Israeli forces remain and fighting continues. Multiple ceasefires, multiple violations, no real peace. 3 ships seized this morning, the Euphoria, fired on, the MSC Francesca seized, the Epaminondas seized, all within hours of Trump's extension. And according to the White House, none of it violates the truce because they weren't American ships. Iran's parliament speaker was clear. The strait will not reopen as long as the U.S. blockade remains. He called the U.S. blockade a blatant ceasefire violation. So Iran sees themselves responding to American violations, not initiating them. The U.S. sees it the opposite way. Both claim the moral high ground. Caught in the middle are commercial ships trying to move cargo, sailors trying to do their jobs, the global economy that depends on this waterway, 20% of the world's oil, critical shipping routes, supply chains, all disrupted because 2 countries are fighting over who controls a 34-kilometer-wide strait. This morning's seizures show the ceasefire extension changed nothing fundamental. The U.S. is still enforcing its blockade. Iran is still enforcing its blockade. Ships still get seized. The strait is still effectively closed. The only thing that changed is Trump removed the deadline, creating pressure for resolution. Iran's foreign minister said blockading Iranian ports is an act of war, that the U.S. blockade and the Tuska seizure were ceasefire violations. Iran sees U.S. actions as aggression. The U.S. sees Iran's closure as aggression. Both are now seizing ships to prove their point. The indefinite ceasefire means indefinite stalemate. No talks scheduled, no proposals submitted, no deadline forcing decisions, just both sides enforcing blockades, seizing ships, and claiming the other violated first. The global economy paying the price while the strait remains closed and the standoff continues.